Whenever I get critical of an episode, I almost invariably get accused of having too high of expectations, and especially so after my review of Applejack's Day Off. This is silly for a number of reasons, one being that if I was just going to give every episode a pass, there really wouldn't be much of a point to doing this, and another being that having at least some standard of quality for something you care about is, last I checked, perfectly natural and to be expected. The biggest reason this is silly, however, is that, as I have long maintained, it's not at all true. My expectations are not too high. I don't need every episode to be some kind of event. And now, with episode 18 of Season 6, Buckball Season, I have a shiny brand new episode to point to as proof. This entire season, it seems that the phrase, "it's like a Season 1 or 2 episode," has been brought out to defend any number of episodes that didn't deserve it, but for once it actually genuinely does apply. It's a low-stakes episode, but one high on charm, which explores the bonds between the characters we love and teaches a nifty little moral in a way that is fun and relatively engaging. In a lot of ways, this to me is the perfect way to follow up the previous 2 episodes. After Changelings and Discord, after a thoughtful episode out to make us feel, and an episode bound and determined to make us laugh like crazy, something like this, which is so much more subtle and laid back but no less endearing, just feels right somehow. It shows how varied the stories in the show can be, how we can have both the magical and fantastic, and the more simple and mundane, and yet both can be worthwhile and appealing. The key, as ever it is characterization. Poor characterization is at the heart of why episodes like Applejack's Day Off, and especially 28 Pranks Later, don't work for me. MLP is a show with characters who learn and grow. So while a return to the spirit of the earlier seasons is appreciated if done right, a return to the characterization seen in those seasons can only be seen as a mistake. Buckball Season gets it right. No one feels like they're anywhere other than where they should be character-wise. Look at Rainbow Dash. She recognizes that Fluttershy is better than her, admits it, and encourages her. There is no bullheaded pride on display. She doesn't turn it into a competition, try and outdo Fluttershy, or let it get to her. She's past all those behaviors. The conflict instead comes from her encouraging Fluttershy in the wrong way, and even then it's understandable. In Rainbow Falls and Hurricane Fluttershy, training sessions did actually lead to small improvements from her. And there and in other places, being under a lot of pressure has actually allowed Fluttershy to tap into hidden depths. The difference here is in the nuance. Fluttershy is a natural who is able to be really good just by having fun. In this particular case, the pressure only gets into her head. But we can't really expect Rainbow Dash to recognize that immediately. Then there's Fluttershy herself. This was a delightful appearance for her. I always found her inclusion in Rainbow Falls incredibly forced, but this kind of softens that a little, as seeing her just so clearly having fun while doing something athletic retrospectively makes it seem like less of a stretch for her character. Now we can just accept that there is this sportier side of her which she just doesn't show as plainly as Rainbow Dash or Applejack. Also, as with the Equestria games, despite performing as part of a team before a crowd, she retains her composure. No, what does lead to her rather memorable and hilarious breakdown is something different from her social anxiety. Something closer to what was her block in Hurricane Fluttershy, her starting to second guess herself and doubt that she is capable of doing what is expected of her. And Pinkie Pie is similar. On my first watch, I thought something felt off of how she was portrayed in the episode, though watching it a few more times it started to line up for me a lot more. I think I still have this image sometimes of Pinkie Pie as this character who is just very capable of taking things as they come, but we've seen several times that that's not always the case. The most clear demonstration is Party Pooped, where she was under a huge amount of stress and it clearly got to her. We've seen elsewhere, such as in Griffin the Brush-Off, that she does at times second-guess herself too, while Pinkie Pie made it clear that despite her lackadaisical appearance, the job she does at what she does is something she takes very seriously. So, yeah, I was wrong the first time I watched. This actually does make perfect sense for where Pinkie as a character should be. What about Applejack? Well, she was fine too. I think it's cute to see she has this cousin rivalry with Brayburn. It's charming, especially since competitiveness is not something we generally see with her and her siblings. And while I do think that she comes across worse in her attempts to train Pinkie than Rainbow with Fluttershy, plainly projecting her own personal stakes in the game onto Pinkie, while Rainbow is more simply encouraging Fluttershy to physically excel, it doesn't feel wrong to me. Unlike in The Cart Before the Ponies, it managed to make her wrong without making her unlikable. And there was one other significant character of the day, wasn't there? You know, pretty much since their inception in Ghostbusters, I've been in the boat that Snips and Snails are two of the least successful and least worthwhile characters in the entire series. They are simply not effective comedic relief. They're far more annoying than they are charming. When we last saw them in The Cart Before the Ponies, each of them was given a forced, hackneyed punchline that made me cringe. If you had told me going into this one for the first time, Snails was going to have a significant role in the episode, I wouldn't have been very happy about it. What the episode did with Snails was surprisingly refreshing. This is easily his best appearance yet. I don't know if he just works better without his counterpart or if he was simply written better or both, but he was actually funny and charming here. It didn't feel as forced as it usually does. A big part of it might be that he was actually shown to be skillful, which is really cool. In Ghostbusters, he had struggled to simply light up his horn, but now he can levitate multiple objects at once and do tricks. I like seeing that progression. We've seen Sweetie Belle gradually learn to use her magic, and considering Snails clearly had a head start on her with his, I can totally get on board with the idea that he's up to this point, especially since magic is something we know he cares about from how he and Snips idolized Trixie and the magic show they performed together in Showstoppers. And introducing this real competence in magic, it offsets everything else with his character. It's harder to see him as a useless punchline when it's so plain that he has a real level of skill that can't be denied. And his philosophy of not thinking about anything being critical of solving the conflict only makes it better. So, thank you, Jennifer Skelly, you have redeemed one of my least favorite characters in the show. Now do the other one, or twist. Seriously though, it's a really cool thing, and that along with everything else does easily earn the new writer of the episode, Miss Skelly, a place alongside the other new writers for this season, who I'm truly excited to see more from. She seems to know these characters and how to utilize them quite well. I mean, if there is one thing that bothered me in the episode, it's not her fault, but rather the fault of the storyboarders or possibly the directors, and this is a small nitpick, so bear with me here. At the Buckball game, we see the Ponyville cheering section. It's comprised largely of the same ponies we see at the train station. Isn't that odd? I mean, it's certainly possible, I guess, that they take a second train afterwards to get there, but it feels kind of weird with the scene of them seeing the ponies off coupled with these lines.
I hear the whole town's already planning a parade for when you get back after whooping Appaloosa. That should feel pretty good.
It should? Totally! Just spend the whole ride to Appaloosa thinking about every pony cheering for the victorious Ponyville Buckball team.
It just seems like the clear intent of the writer is for the Ponyville ponies to stay behind, ready to cheer when the team returns victorious. And while it's good to get another chance to see Derpy and company again in the episode, it just created a sense of incongruity having them there at the game in spite of what the earlier scene implied. And none of this is helped by the fact that Bonbon is on the train that she is shown not boarding, and without the makeup she just had on her face. Then there's this pony. She is one of the new Canterlot background ponies introduced in Canterlot Boutique. Before this she had appeared only in Canterlot. She should not be in Ponyville trying out for their Buckball team. After Season 5 did so much to make it finally feel like we were acknowledging that the background ponies were distinct facets of a more organic Equestria, with more new designs than ever before being introduced in episodes like Made in Manhattan and Princess Spike, and even the writers providing an explanation in the brilliant amending fences for why we'd sometimes see some of the same ones in multiple places, it's just disappointing to see such sloppiness on display again. This is a characteristic of the earlier seasons that definitely did not need to return. The only other things that bothered me in the episode were also minor gripes. For one, even if there was no intention to use her in the episode, it would have been so easy to at least give us a Rarity cameo during the Unicorn Fail montage. They so easily could have replaced this pony with her, and without giving her any lines too, if they were adamant about keeping this an Andrea and Ashley only affair. Really, her absence should have at the very least been addressed in the dialogue. If they asked her and she turned them down, that's fair enough, but tell us as much. Having them looking for a unicorn when one of their best friends is a unicorn and not even bringing it up as a possibility just feels strange. And before anyone says, oh, but it's obvious that Rarity wouldn't be good at sports, Fluttershy's approach to play, and she, by appearances, is just as much not the sporty type as Rarity. And like Fluttershy, Rarity has been shown to have hidden depths when it comes to athletic challenges, and is also naturally very competitive on the same level as Rainbow and AJ. And it's not just Rarity. Twilight is excusable since, yeah, an alicorn is probably against the rules, but what about Starlight? She, as I said myself not too long ago, is not like the same level of best friend to them as Rarity is, but she is their friend and she lives in Ponyville and would probably appreciate being included. Again, I like what was done with Snails, and I'm not asking that he be replaced or anything, but it would have just been so easy to add a line to the script explaining why these weren't options. Without it, when we move on immediately to let's find whatever random unicorn we can get, it kind of comes across like someone was potentially left out. Then there's the game itself. I rather like Buckball in concept. A unique game that calls for one of each type of pony is something neat to see. And it genuinely looks like a lot of fun. For the Earth ponies and Pegasi. The unicorns though, yeah. Stand perfectly still and lift this bucket when you see the ball. It's a test of reflexes, I guess, but I mean, unicorn Buckball players, they can't be getting the same thing out of this game as everyone else involved, can they? Simple as it is, it's actually kind of a wonder that every other unicorn aside from Snails is so incompetent at it. Is every unicorn in Ponyville who showed up just some kind of panicky mess? It is kind of funny in a way though, I guess, and really I can't get mad at much of anything here. It's an episode that I've enjoyed more every time I've watched it. It's just fun and also all kinds of cute. Seriously, everyone's so adorable here, especially Fluttershy. There really is something about seeing her just enjoy herself that is utterly infectious. Also, gotta give kudos to the animators here. The sporting action was all really fluid and engaging, and we got some of the best faces we've seen in a while. The 3D effect used on the train was also kinda neat. That slippage with the background ponies aside, it was just an overall well-crafted episode all around. And while it's not the kind of episode that provides any meaningful progression or questions for the future, it's the kind of episode that just reaffirms to me why I fell in love with this series in the first place. It was charming, it was fun, and it's another to add to the growing list of Season 6 delights. This has been a RarityDash review, thanks for watching, and see you soon.